Hey guys, welcome to the new episode of Automated Seller Podcast. We have a new special guest, Ben Ryan Schwartz. Hi Ben, how are you?
I'm good, Jacob. Thanks so much for having me today.
Sure, it's great to have you here, Ben. I know that you are a VP of Growth at Eva, and we'll be talking actually about Eva. We'll be talking about your position and your main job as a VP of Growth at Eva. But first, maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit to the audience. Tell a little bit of your background. How did you get actually to e-com space at the first place? And how did you end up working later as a VP of Growth at Eva?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a really, I guess my path and journey has been really unique. I actually started my career, believe it or not, actually in the entertainment industry. And it wasn't until I got into my 30s that I kind of transitioned out into the retail and e-com space. So I started in traditional brick and mortar retail for Apple, believe it or not, at the store level. And
Okay.
then from there, I kind of,
You are the actual Apple genius or
Yeah, so I was not an Apple genius. I actually was what they call an expert at the store.
okay.
So it was kind of like a senior sales associate. So
Got it.
I started my career there. I had an opportunity to go up to Cupertino and actually work on some special projects, which was super exciting. After Apple, I worked for several other luxury brands, and then eventually transitioned into e-com when I went to Amazon. So I was at Amazon. I actually worked on the global marketplace, specifically with brands and sellers that were looking to expand over into Europe. Then I had the opportunity to work at Amazon Fresh through the Whole Foods acquisition. After leaving Amazon, though, I've actually been fortunate and honored to kind of, work in a variety of different roles and companies within the e-com space. So I worked at an Amazon agency. I ran the Amazon business for one of the largest 3P sellers here in the US. Then I was in fulfillment and logistics, ad technology, inventory management. And now I'm here at Eva.
Okay.
It's funny because I once had a colleague dub me an e-commerce athlete. And
You've done it all.
yeah, I was like, that's a really apropos title, which has been really exciting because I think e-commerce over the past several years has really accelerated.
Yeah.
And to be able to understand kind of all the various components that not only go into an e-commerce business, but understand how all the pieces fit together, I think is incredibly crucial and really important, for brands and sellers to understand as they want to grow. And that's kind of, believe it or not, actually what brought me to Eva. So I've been lucky, and I've actually worked for startups in the past. And one of the things that really excites me about startups is the ability to build things.
Oh, yeah.
And so, this particular opportunity allowed me to kind of tap into all my areas of expertise. And so I feel like every day I'm like peeling back the onion. I'm looking at all the various different, pieces, and then I'm assembling the puzzle.
That's awesome. And actually, Ben, for the actual Amazon itself, like how long did you work there?
So I was at Amazon a little over 2 years.
2 years, got it. But still, I think that you gain a lot of experience and contacts that they later on accelerate your career path, right?
Yeah, I think for me the core thing that I learned at Amazon really comes back to some of the leadership principles. So really being customer obsessed, and then I'd say the big thing specifically from like a growth and strategy perspective is kind of working backwards. I think it's really incredibly important that if you understand the outcome that you're trying to achieve, then you can, by working backwards, you can then start to identify what are all the various things that have to happen in order to make this thing, in order to be able to execute, ultimately what it is that you're looking to accomplish, whether it is identifying what are the blockers, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and then ultimately kind of aligning yourself, with the right people who can execute.
Yeah, that's for sure. And actually, speaking of people, I know that we talked a little bit about it before we actually recorded, right? That you've seen my posts about the Automated Seller podcast. People I've actually had episodes with. We spoke a little bit about the how they called conferences. And actually, I wonder during your whole career, like, how is it in the e-com space and Amazon especially, about like those people that you met? Like, is it that there's like a huge community of people? Is it that at every conference you actually meet new people, or is it actually like a close group of companies and people who are there? Like I'm really wondering actually, because I'm here for again 1.5 years, just specifically speaking Amazon, and I already started to see the actual same companies and people across different conferences, but you are there for much longer, right? So I'm really curious, how is it from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the Amazon community, this is going to sound contrarian. I think that's the right word. But like the community is very big, but it's also very small. And what I mean by that is I think with a lot of these conferences that are out there, you do tend to see the same people because they've been able to establish themselves as experts in their field, and they're able to offer solutions that have stand the test of time. I think one of the things that you see a lot in e-commerce, specifically, is just like you have brands and sellers popping up every day, you also have lots of e-commerce companies as well that are popping up. But it's those that truly kind of understand the Amazon ecosystem that truly are solving problems, and then are also evolving their service offerings, are the ones that tend to kind of remain at the end of the day. And so I think that's one reason why you're kind of seeing the same people day in and day out. Now, that being said, I think the Amazon community is incredibly welcoming. I think for the very thing that I just mentioned, which is there are new sellers that, people and entrepreneurs, that are every day that are joining Amazon. And so as they're on their Amazon journey, they are going to need assistance. And so then if you also think about how rapidly Amazon is expanding, their own service offering and the data that they're making available via API, you have maybe some newer entrepreneurs that are identifying there's some white space. And so they're recognizing that, oh, no, there's no tool out there right now that's solving this problem. So maybe we will. So I think then going back to your comment about like the conferences and the people that you're seeing, I think you're always going to see kind of a combination of both. You're going to see the same faces, but you're also going to see new faces, whether that is on the provider side or on the seller side. But I think the other thing that's also exciting about these conferences, the fact that you are seeing the same people day in and day out, it also kind of becomes an opportunity to engage with your community. I think friendly competition is great, but at the end of the day, I think we're all here for the same reason, which is we want to be of service. We want to help brands and sellers be successful.
Surely. I also really like your actually comment on the new opportunities, right? Specifically speaking of the ASP API. I mean, that was the case for us, actually. We just saw the need for custom work for our agency. Like I literally just dropped one video. No one really recorded such a video back then. That was on the old API MWS. I just literally showed how easy it is to back then it wasn't actually that easy, but I showed how to do it step by step, like how to pull simple orders and put them to Google Sheets, and people started to reaching out to us, right? I was like, okay, there's so many different software solutions out there already, but still like people have new ideas every single day on different solutions, right? And now I'm really curious actually to hear about the EVA. I know that EVA is a software company. I actually checked your website and you're actually guys crushing it. I also saw you on so many different conferences. So I would love to hear a little bit about EVA actually today. So tell me, please, Ben, what's EVA core mission and maybe core features? So like the actual solution, like how do you help sellers in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So EVA, we are an AI-powered e-commerce optimization platform, as well as a service provider. And I'd say our core focus is that we want to simplify operations, we want to help brands expand their market share and grow their business profitably. And so we kind of tackle that in a variety of ways. So kind of at the core of what we do and what we've built is our platform. And so within the platform itself, you can integrate, your stores. So in this case, it would be Amazon. And as you kind of mentioned, from like the API perspective, there's a lot of available data in these APIs, whether it's the seller API, the vendor API, the advertising API. And so what we do is we bring in all of this data, and the core goal is that we want to provide kind of an integrated solution first for analytics. So that way, you truly understand what is going on with the business, not just at a high level, but then also at a more granular level. So that means your sales, your expenses, your advertising costs, your inventory, because all of that's going to tie into, what I mentioned is kind of one of our core mission, which is about profitability. So that's part number one. And then I'd say part number two, then outside the platform then is also how we can provide additional value add. And that's through an augmentation of our services. So services could be related to refund recovery, whether you're a seller or you're on the vendor side. If you're looking for advertising assistance, content and design, and even 3PL. And so I think that's one of the things I think that makes us unique. I'd say, having been on the agency side in the past, most agencies have been created and really evolve around services. They're not necessarily a tech company. What's interesting about Eva is that we are a tech company first that just happens to also offer additional services. And these services evolved based on the needs and wants and desires of our customers.
I really like it. Actually, this is kind of the maybe approach that I try to sell our services to agencies, right? Because, this is very interesting because you're literally having your own software, but at the same time you're actually doing like the agency services, so you don't have to pay extra to use any other software. You just have everything end to end. So I think it's great. But there are so many different agencies, right? Then they're using a bunch of different softwares. Probably a lot of agencies are using also your software. But I think what's actually valuable, and the reason why actually people invest, for example, into custom software is that if they build something on their own, they will become a technological company, right? So which you are in this case. So I think that's actually great, and I think that was definitely involved in the business plan from the scratch. I think that's just a great execution right there. But I really like it.
What I was also going to say too, I think the other core thing to kind of keep in mind is, having been on the seller side as well, and you probably understand this, being a developer as well, is there are so many tools that exist that are out there. The challenge is that as a brand or as a seller, how do you know which tools to use? Is it really sustainable to use 13 different tools to run your Amazon business? Our perspective is, no, it's not. And so that's kind of why when we think about our platform and kind of the investments that we're making, if we can solve the problem of enabling brands and empower them to be less reliant on Seller Central, which is the main hub for most people, but it's also limiting based on currently what it provides. How can you create a platform that the various different teams in an e-com business can operate off of, that actually helps them not only execute their jobs more efficiently and effectively, but then also kind of acts as the core hub that enables you to make those strategic decisions for your business. So I'd say long term, that's kind of one of the visions that we have.
That's actually awesome. And now, Ben, I would love to hear a little bit actually about your role. So I know that you are Vice President of Growth, but a lot of listeners might not really know what's behind that, right? So I would love to talk a little bit about your role. I mean, literally like your daily job, day to day. Like I assume that you're expanding Eva. You're also doing some kind of client acquisitions, but this is not like a sales officer. So I would love to hear, what are your day-to-day job?
Yeah, well, my day-to-day can change depending on the needs of the business. That's actually I think that's part of the excitement of doing a role like this, specifically, I'd say in a startup where you have to be incredibly nimble and flexible.
It's actually Eva a startup. Sorry, because I think you're already like profitable and doing pretty well, right?
So I think there's different phases of startups. So you have, so I'd say we're probably at the growth phase, no pun intended, the growth / scale up phase, of our evolution. So because we've been around I believe since 2020, though I think the ideas and the seeds of the company started back in 2019, similar to yourself. Um, and so I'd say specific as we think about this growth function, it's relatively, I don't want to say, well, it's relatively new in terms of, I think, how people are executing it. But I don't think that necessarily the role itself hasn't existed in the past. I think it was a combination of a variety of other different roles. And I think what folks are recognizing is that rather than having a little bit of everybody do this role, you need to have a core owner of the role as well as the responsibilities. So to kind of boil that down for those that are watching us today, I'd say the core thing when I think about my main focus, it's on acquisition, expansion, and retainment. So as you kind of mentioned, it's not necessarily solely focused on traditional sales. Obviously, if we think about the main metric, revenue, is something, of course, that I would be, accountable for. And so when I think about acquisition, it's yes, how do we go out and not only create more brand awareness for who Eva is, the problems that we solve, and then bringing those new customers in the door, but it's also about looking at our existing customers and saying, okay, are we continuously adding value to their business? What other areas perhaps could they be having problems or challenges with that we can help solve? As well as making sure, are we keeping customers happy? Are they continuously staying with us, or are they leaving us?
Sure.
And so within that, then I kind of have to look at all the various parts of the business to say, are we doing a good job or are we not doing a good job? And so this is a highly cross-functional role.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm working day in and day out with sales, with marketing, with customer success, with finance, with product. And so for a lot of companies in the past, they haven't necessarily had that person who's kind of looking at both the inputs and outputs of what these individual teams are doing and looking at it through the lens of, are we all aligned to make sure that we are executing on the things that are going to help us achieve our core mission?
Sure. It's connecting a lot of dots and facts together. So I really like it. It's kind of like a thing I do, but obviously not on such a scale. Like we are much smaller, but like I fully understand like what it takes to actually do those things. And it's really hard because all of those teams probably they are separate. I mean, obviously you need to connect and keep the communication flow between them. But I just know that sometimes like especially like product team has something different in mind, and then customers, they have different things in mind, and then of course the marketing also like is doing completely different things. So I know how important it is to do this.
Yeah, I think like you said, that's kind of the challenge. So like a lot of companies now, we are a remote company and we're global. So we're working across time zones, we're working across geographies, but everyone is executing independently. So the question is that how do you maintain the work, the flow of work, as well as making sure that everything that we're doing, as I mentioned before, everything is aligned to what it is that we're looking to achieve. And that means constantly having to reprioritize or deprioritize, because like most companies, everyone has a finite amount of resources and bandwidth. So I'd say the core thing is, are we focusing on the right things at the right time?
Got it. I like it. And Ben, actually, if I can ask you, because I assume right now, especially, it's not like it was Amazon like 10 years ago. Like there were not that many software solutions out there. So pretty much if someone wanted to use a software, there were just not so many options back then. But now it's I think different. It's more like if you go to any of the conferences and you see the booths, almost every booth or almost every second booth is actually a software company. So I'm actually curious, what's your not opinion, but maybe the best acquisition channel at the moment to get new sellers use Eva, right? Or like the best strategy? Is it like a free trial? Is it like actually going and posting on social media? Maybe those are conferences. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts right now, because definitely the competition is there. It's strong. So I'm really curious. Or if it's a secret, you obviously you don't have to share, but like I'm personally like really curious.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think acquisition is incredibly challenging because there are, such a large amount of tools that not only currently exist but are constantly coming out. I think really what it comes down to when I think about acquisition is what is the problem that you're solving and what is the value that you are bringing. I think gone are the days of scheduling a demo and showing somebody the power of your platform. In my opinion, that's not necessarily what's going to close a deal. Um, it really is, understanding at its true core, and I know we've used this word core a lot, so I apologize to the viewers, but it's really like it's really engaging and understanding what are the problems that brands are facing. One of the things that I've been doing is chatting with brands, and I'm saying, how was your 2023? There were lots of challenges for brands in 2023. The challenges that first existed and came to light during the pandemic, some of them, still exist. There are halo effects on it. So the question I'm always asking is, what were your challenges in 2023? What were your successes? What were your obstacles? And then how are you thinking about 2024? So I think about putting aside like the acquisition channel for a second. It's, do you really understand what the pain points that currently exist that are out there, for brands in the market. And what you might end up finding out is, yeah, different businesses are going to be based on their size and scale. Some of the problems might be the same, but meaning in terms of if you think about um, the core of what most brands typically encounter on Amazon is the core challenge. It's either a traffic problem or a conversion problem. But as you drill in a little bit deeper, then you can start to identify like where within that traffic or where within that conversion problem really needs, the guidance and assistance. Is it images? Is it content? Is it description? Is it organic sales? Is it SEO? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think once you can identify specifically what the problem is, then it's a matter of making sure like how are you educating consumers on it, or I should say, how are you, not your consumer, but I guess how are you educating your customer? And so I also did a survey at the end of 2023 asking people, existing customers as well as even prospects, where do you get your information? And it was actually really interesting because you'll laugh because this kind of goes back to one of your earlier questions. A lot of them get their information, believe it or not, from conferences. So a lot of them are going to conferences. So that can be a great acquisition channel. Some of them are getting it from LinkedIn. Some of them are getting it from newsletters. And so I think as a software company, one of the things that we're always looking at is we want to be able to meet the customer or our buyer, let's just say, where they want to be met. And so again, if it's LinkedIn, if it's a conference, if it's an email, if it's a Facebook group, we're investing in all of those channels, but at the same time, we're also evaluating the outcomes of these channels, because what we may end up finding out is the customers that we acquire, maybe they don't go on those channels. And so going back to what I said before about finite resources, we have to be strategic with how we spend our time, because there is an investment, whether it's a financial investment or a time and resource investment. Um,
100%. Yeah. I just want to say that that's actually like, I would literally answer this question like exactly the same, right? Like starting from beginning, I think it's the most important thing. It's just that getting new clients nowadays, right? Getting new users is basically by solving their problems. In our case, for example, I mean, it's actually a little bit simpler because we don't have the product, so the competition is not that big. So in our case was, and I did this interview a lot with our clients when I just asked them simply like, hey, how did you found out about us? Why did you decide to work with us? And they all actually said the same thing, which is you solved the particular problem of, like, for example, getting data from the API or doing the particular code we think, and you actually show this on a YouTube video or in a blog post, and then we decided, and we saw, okay, like, you know how to do that. Now we'll just pay you for the execution, right? Because we are certain that you will do that for us. So I solved the problem. They are paying for solving this problem, and basically that's how we are helping them. And then in the end, in our case, we just have 2 or 3 channels that we invest into. right? So those are mostly blog, YouTube, and now like a podcast, basically, because this is a kind of a new thing I'm still testing, but like we already got the ROI. Like people actually love to hear about the solutions and problems here. So yeah, and I think that's something that is very important, because obviously nowadays when it comes to growth of a company, there's so many different channels. Like you can start a newsletter, you can go and go to different conferences, you can post on social media, go and create your own Facebook group. Like there are tons of different ways of doing it, but as you just said, you need to know where to put most of your resources and what gives you the best ROI, and just focus on those. So I really like your answer here.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing too is when we go back to talking about like the solving problems and the value, one of the big things that we kind of were thinking about at the end of 2023 is going back to, our mission of simplifying operational complexity, dominating market share and helping businesses grow profitably. We were really thinking about, okay, this is what our core mission is. How do we make this accessible and more attainable and more affordable for more folks? So like just at the end of last week alone, we decided to actually create a brand new offering for brands and sellers that are out there, regardless of where they are in their evolution, whether they're just starting out, and launching, or whether they're more established. So going back to the idea of value, we realized that, hey, how can we democratize and enable more people to better understand their data? And so we launched this new plan regarding profit analytics. And we said for $25 a month, we're going to let anyone who has an Amazon store sign up for Eva. And so all the power of the insights that we currently have available, we wanted to essentially give the opportunity and make it more accessible. So we've launched this new plan. People can connect their store. And again, for $25 a month, which is less than $1 a day, they can understand, is my business
by the way, I think it's actually a very good price. Just to tell you, like just a Power BI itself costs, I think, something around that, but you still need to create the dashboards, create the connector, and so on, right? So just the license for BI tool already costs that, and if you have a whole analytics for $25 per month, that's a huge value.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing too. I mean, like you said, the cost to get access to this data can be incredibly expensive. And not only that, but if you were to go into Amazon and download all these reports, and then manually do the reconciliation and your formulas, that takes time and a lot of effort. And the thing is that Amazon moves at a fast pace. And so do e-com businesses. So how do we make it easier for them to make better and informed decisions for their business? And so that was, as part of our growth strategy. I said, how can we help more brands? How can we do it more efficiently? And how can we do it more effectively? And so, super excited, like I mentioned, to have launched, this plan last week.
Sure, that's awesome. And now actually, Ben, I would love to hear, let's say, top 3, because obviously, as I also saw in your website, you have a lot of different features, a lot of different options, but most likely there are at least top 3 features that most of the customers come to you, right? Like you need to have at least top 1 or 2 things that people actually decide and say, okay, I want to try Eva, and this is the main reason I go here. And then the rest actually is just kind of like the addition, which is like great to have, right? So I wonder what are those best features that you offer at Eva that's like a game changer for you?
Yeah, so I'd say, obviously, I guess I was what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I spoke too soon, but one of them obviously is the profit analytics piece. So that was always kind of the foundation of the platform, especially right when you log in. So we decided, how do we make it more accessible? We created a specific plan that again can give everybody access to it. So I say that's kind of a core function and a kind of a main feature or a main value add that I think a lot of folks are seeing benefit with Eva. I'd say second is dynamic pricing. So, years ago when we think about pricing, a lot of it was just focused on, how do I maintain the buy box? I think back then it was all about, I got to win the buy box, so I need to adjust my price buy a penny here, a penny there to make sure that I'm constantly, generating sales. But I think that's really evolved. And so we have a concept called dynamic pricing. And so dynamic pricing is another, I'd say, key feature. And so the idea behind it is, how do we make sure that the price is optimal at the time of intent and purchase? And so we're looking at a variety of different factors. We're looking at time of day. We're looking at seasonality. We're looking at other sales indicators that we have based on an individual seller's account. We're looking at inventory levels. We're looking at advertising strategy. And so dynamic pricing, I'd say, is another key feature that we have. And then I'd also say, reimbursement recovery. As I mentioned, recovering, money from Amazon, whether you're a vendor or you're a seller, it's incredibly time consuming. And we want to make that easier for sellers. And so that's something then they can essentially work with our team on, or be like, hey, you know what? Let's work with a team that can kind of focus on that. And then, we're very lucky and fortunate that I believe we have a 98% success rate. We're finding about 20% more eligible claims compared to competitors. We also have best in industry rates. The other cool thing is if you are a platform user and you decide to bundle in reimbursement recovery, you actually even get an additional discount on our reimbursement recovery fee. Because when you think about it, if we can help you recover more money and more money goes back into your pocket as an Amazon brand or seller, that now means you have more working capital that you can invest back in your business. So that could be buying more inventory or allocating that towards your advertising budget. So I think those are I'd say, three key things that we see our customers leveraging day in and day out.
Got it. Thanks a lot for this, actually. Yeah, that's yeah. Those are really good, like, I would say, golden features. And I can actually think about them, like, speaking of our business, that like when people come to us, usually like each of those three is like a completely different software project. So I really like that your platform actually brings together and combine those different things. And in the end, it's kind of like a ecosystem of different software products all combined on like one platform. So I really like this. And that actually brings me to another question. Of course, like, I really appreciate if you are like as transparent as you can and as your NDA says, right? But like, what's the biggest problem is that like people are coming to us, for example, is that they think that like building the software is like super cheap, right? Like they come to us and some of them, they are like literally asking like, hey, build us like a next Jungle Scout. Like they literally do that and they say, okay, I want to have custom analytics, custom repricing tools, and so on and so on, like tens of different software solutions. And they come to us with like a budget of like $5,000, for example, right? Like, and I'm always telling them that first of all, like this is just not possible. That if someone goes to us and they ask us to build like a whole bunch of tools from scratch to the same level as Jungle Scout, because Jungle Scout is like a huge company with like hundreds of employees, millions of dollars like already invested into those solutions, right? And basically, like my question is overall, like speaking of Eva, like as a platform, as a software, right? Like how much effort overall does it take? Like you already said that the company was kind of like in the ideas starting from like 2019, then it was created in 2020. I don't know if it's like a VC backed, but probably like you had some initial fund to build this software, right? Like how much time, effort, people, skills, etc. it takes to build such a company, right? Like I really like to hear your opinion here, because whenever I'm telling this to our clients, they say, okay, no, you're too expensive, and they go into like Upwork or Fiverr and they think that everything is possible to just do with like one or two freelancers.
Yeah, so I'd say I'd boil it down to like three things. I think one is focus. So as a company, we knew from day one what was the long-term vision and goal that we were trying to build. And so in order to execute on that vision, you have to be focused. I think it's very easy to be distracted by the big new shiny object. As I mentioned before, Amazon is always coming out with new things. There's also new channels that are always coming up. When I think about, even after Amazon, of course, then you have Walmart, but then you have newer channels like Shein or Temu. And so it's great to want to all of a sudden, like, let's do this or let's do that. But the thing is that if you don't focus on the main objective and you get distracted, it means the quality of the work that you're doing is going to suffer. So I would say focus is incredibly important. That would be point number one. Point number two is especially in a startup environment, is you need to have agile teams that are okay working in an environment of ambiguity. Startups are not for everyone. I've worked for several, and they're challenging because it's, as we mentioned at the beginning, every day is not going to be the same. You're going to have a new challenge. You're working, especially in technology, things break. Working with APIs, it's very delicate. Whether it's your API or a partner's API, it requires a lot of attention. And so having teams that can be really agile, I think is incredibly important. So that way they can jump in when they need to be, solve the problem, and then pivot right back out to what they were working on. So I think agile teams is equally important. And then I'd say number three is actually global expertise. E-commerce is not just a US, type of industry. It's not just, a European-based industry. It's a global industry. And so what that means then is there's a lot of global talent and expertise that exists that is out there. And so for us, that's kind of the lens in which we view it. We want to be able to tap into and leverage the best expertise that exists, whether it's on engineering, whether it's in sales, whether it's in marketing, even whether if it's in, executive leadership. Because we believe that by leveraging global expertise, it is going to benefit our customers. And so to wrap it all up, I would say it comes down to focus, agile teams, and global expertise.
Exactly. So in the end, all of those things combined, like those are huge resources to even start off building like the next software company, which in the end can easily scale and then acquire new customers, right? Like you need all of those three for a success.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, you need capital as well. I mean, those are the obvious ones, but again, it doesn't necessarily matter, how much money you have. If the teams themselves can't execute, then you'll never be able to scale.
Surely. Yeah, Ben, I have one more question actually for you. Pretty much like a success story. I mean, again, you said about those key free features that clients comes to you. Let's just focus on one. It can be reimbursement, it can be repricing, or maybe analytics. If you could share like the biggest success story of one of your clients, I think maybe the best would be about either dynamic pricing or reimbursement, like how much of the money was made using Eva.
Yeah, so I don't have a reimbursement example at my fingertips. But I did just get an email this morning from a member of our customer success team. So that was the one that I'm thinking like top of mind that I can share with you. And this actually ties back into profit analytics, believe it or not. So we had a brand, home brand, that had reached out to us, I guess, right around the holiday season. And they were having a significant amount of challenges when it came to organic sales and advertising. And so our team kind of dove in. We did an audit on the business and kind of understand where there were a lot of, I would say, optimizations needed. And so through a combination of using AI as well as our services team, we were successful in decreasing their ACOS and tacos by 50%. We were able to grow sales by 60%. All while keeping their expenses the same. And so again, I believe this brand has only been working with us for about like 2 months or so. And so just in such a short period of time, we were able to have a significant impact on their business.
Those are insane numbers.
Yeah, well, and so here's the thing too that I think is a key differentiator for us, and it goes back to what I mentioned before about, using AI as well as human services. It's very easy with a lot of tools that are out there, specifically on the advertising side, where you go into this platform, you can set up your rules, and then you kind of set it and forget it. And that's great, but the thing is that AI is only as good as the person who set the parameters. And so that's kind of the approach that we've taken is, yeah, we want to use AI, but there also needs to be a person who is driving it, who is actively involved in the business. And so the results that we were able to achieve we were able to do that because of just our approach that we take as a
combination. Yeah, got it. Nice, very nice. Ben, thanks a lot actually for the nice interview. I think that our audience here learned a lot, like I did. So thanks a lot for coming here on the show. The last thing, Ben, maybe is if you could share some of the information, if people have some questions to you, where people can find you, how people can try Eva. I'd really appreciate your information here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say the easiest place to find Eva is on our website, which is Eva, that's EVA.guru, that's GURU. So Eva.guru is the best place to learn more information about who we are and what we do. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So Ben Ryan Schwartz, you can find me on LinkedIn. And then I'd say in terms of, trying out the software as well as the service, with some of the new pricing plans that we just launched last week, specifically our profit analytics plan, which we call the Essential, and then our dynamic pricing plan, which we call the growth plan. Each of those come with a trial. So the Essential plan comes with a 7-day free trial, and our dynamic pricing plan called the growth plan comes with a 14-day trial. All you need to do is go to the website, connect in your store. I believe we do not collect any credit card information up front, which is great. So you just connect your store. You can try out the service. We also offer complimentary consultations as well as PPC audits. Again, at the end of the day, whether you're a brand just launching on Amazon or you're a more established brand who maybe is encountering some challenges and looking for a strategic partner, we would love to have the opportunity to be there and assist your business, not just on Amazon, but also on other channels that we support.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I'll make sure to include those information also in a description of this episode. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching. Thanks, Ben, for coming. And bye-bye.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.